Hey everyone, welcome back to my round 5 recap from the Biel Chess Festival. I finished my game about an hour ago and had a really interesting battle against a fellow IM, Marius from Germany. And yeah, let's just get into it. So I decided to play e4 today, and I was expecting a Sicilian defense, but my opponent slightly surprised me with the French, which I saw that he's capable of playing. He probably plays this maybe 15% of competitive games. And I didn't really look at the French much this morning before the round, but I decided that if he tried to surprise me in the opening, I would surprise him back. And I played a weapon against the French that I've really never played before in a serious classical game, starting in this position with the move bishop to d3. And this is called the Schlechter variation. And it's an opening that I actually learned from chessmood.com. They have a whole extensive course covering this opening in a lot of depth. And I was watching some of the videos over the recent weeks and months. And even though this objectively isn't the most dangerous option against the French, it is really tricky. And there's a lot of lines where black can stumble into some nasty preparation. And it was a good sign because my opponent did take time early on, though he did play the next few moves pretty quickly. Takes, takes. This is by far the main line in the Schlechter variation, pawn c5 and knight e2. And in this position, the main line is knight to c6. And I was aware that my opponent had one game with this move previously, and he actually went wrong very quickly in his one previous game that I could find. After knight c6, white plays bishop to e3, and he had played the move knight to d5. And I'm pretty sure this is just a mistake for black because white can take, take, and even though black is attacking g2, white can essentially provoke black to take it. There's a nice move here, knight c3. And Chessmood does cover this this variation in depth. If you want discounted membership to Chessmood, link is below as usual. But just to show, if queen takes g2, then white can play rook to g1, and then if queen takes h2, there's bishop f4 attacking the queen, and knight b5 is coming. And I'm pretty sure white is just completely winning here. So I was not really expecting my opponent to repeat this line, but I was hopeful that maybe he would just not be comfortable here. And he took a lot of time before playing his next move in this position, and he opted for the move bishop to e7, which is a secondary move, and I'll admit that I wasn't so well prepared for this move. And actually, when he played this, I was kind of kicking myself during the game because I had started watching the Chess Mood video course on exactly this line, and I know they cover it very much in depth, but I just didn't get a chance to watch it, and I wasn't expecting the French in this game, so yeah, my knowledge about this move was not so extensive, and I kind of just improvised in this position, and I castled kingside. Now, right before I started recording this recap, I did check the chess mood recommendation, and they actually recommend holding off on castling and playing the move knight to c3. And I'm pretty sure after this recording, I'll go and binge the chess mood analysis on this. But the point of knight c3 is that if black castles here, then white can play a very quick pawn to d5 and really just try and gain space. And if takes, takes, white has good control over d5 going into the middle game. But unfortunately, I was not so well prepared, and castling was my move of choice. And it's still a very playable move. And the thing about this position is there are a lot of options for white, but it would have been nice to be more extensively prepared. So the game goes on. My opponent castles. I play bishop to e3, so exerting pressure against the c5 pawn. And here my opponent plays knight to c6, so really challenging the pawn on d4 and trying to provoke me to take on c5. And after a bit of thinking, I do decide to take the pawn. And this does temporarily win a pawn for white because my bishop supports the pawn. And it's not so straightforward for black to win back the pawn. But the thing about this position is black does have decent counterplay. And he starts with the move knight to e5, attacking my bishop, trying to get the bishop pair. And I had seen this move coming, and I replied with knight to d2. So I was just trying to complete development and keep everything under control. Knight d2 reinforces the bishop, also creates ideas of knight b3 maybe at some point to better defend the pawn. And then my opponent plays queen c7, so clearly trying to take the pawn. And I did not want to make life so simple for my opponent, so I defend with pawn to b4. And at this point, I was feeling pretty good that I'm holding onto the pawn. And after a5, I simply played pawn to c3, so creating the pawn chain and really putting the question to black how he's going to try and win back material. But going forward from here, my opponent plays rook to d8, so pinning my knight along the d file. Now he's threatening to take on f3, and then I would have to take back with the pawn. So I did not want to allow that, and I play the move knight to d4, so obstructing the d file and also unleashing my queen, so it helps defend the bishop. And here my opponent takes on f3. I take back, and then he keeps the pressure on, plays the move knight to d5, so pressuring b4, also attacking the undefended pawn on c3. And here it's a little bit annoying for white to defend against black's threats. And I figured that I'm okay giving back a pawn, and I played the move pawn to a3, just offering black to take on c3. And during the game, I was expecting him to take, which he didn't do, but if he were to play this move, I'm pretty sure I was going to play knight c4 and try and get counterplay. And the thing here is black took a lot of time to win back the pawn, and white has some nice activity, nice lead in development. There's ideas of knight b6 to just plant the knight on the queen side, target the rook and bishop on c8. So it's possible that my opponent was just not ready to go into that line. And he did find an alternative line here, starting with pawn takes on b4. And after I take back with the c pawn, he doesn't win back the pawn immediately, but he has to move pawn to e5. And he is getting initiative here, attacking my knight on d4. And now I have to be careful because if I put my knight on the wrong square, I could lose material. For example, if I play knight f5, which looks nice and active at first, it allows bishop takes f5, queen takes f5, and then knight takes e3, removing my bishop from defending the knight. And I briefly looked at this line, but black's just winning material here. Even if I take on f7, black is probably very close to winning. So after he played pawn e5, I decided to play knight to b5, just attacking the queen, trying to take back initiative. But then after queen c6, my knight is attacked, and it doesn't really have a great square, and there's not a great way to defend the knight as well. Like if I play a4, then there's knight takes b4, and if I play queen to e2, then my queen ends up being overworked. He can then take, if I take with queen, I lose this knight, and if I take with pawn, then he can take on d2, and this is not something I would want to go into. So I was aware of the danger, and I willingly gave back the pawn here with the move knight to d6, planting the knight in black's territory, but of course allowing takes and takes and takes. But I figured this was a decent transformation because black has given back the bishop pair, so now it's just knight and bishop versus knight and bishop. And I do have still some initiative, and I played the move knight to c4 here. And when I played this move, I was feeling pretty optimistic because I'm attacking the queen, I'm pressuring the pawn, and it doesn't seem like the queen has a great square to go to. And after I played this, I was mainly looking at the moves queen c7 or queen e6 to keep the pawn on e5 defended. And if he plays queen c7, I would play rook c1, and there's a lot of pressure on black with the rook aligned with the queen, threats of knight b6. And if he plays queen e6 here, then I have the move rook to d1, probably rook f d1, pinning the knight. And yeah, the harmony is not great for black because knight's pinned, the bishop is blocked in by the queen is tied down to the pawn and the knight, rook is also tied down to the knight. So I was feeling really good, but then my opponent played a move which I didn't quite see coming, this move queen b8. And even though this looks really ugly at first, it seems to maintain control for black in the position because he keeps the pawn defended and he makes sure that the queen is not a tactical target. And black just wants to play f6 and bishop e6 next moves, probably bishop e6 first next move, and complete development and be okay. So I took some time here trying to see if there's any way for me to keep an edge in the position. And ultimately, I concluded that the position is probably just going to be equal. And we're going to see how the next few moves unfold. Because I play the move knight b6, we trade knights, takes and takes. And I still have some initiative here. But after rook d6, he does attack my bishop. And I had the move rook to d1 in store, basically saying, oh no, my bishop. But of course, if he takes it, it's checkmate. And I was really just trying to get some edge in the position after this move, but he very simply plays the move bishop to d7, preparing to play bishop to c6. And then I kind of just accepted the fact that the position is going to be equal, and I take his rook, he takes back, I play the move rook to d1, trying to offer the trade of bishops, where if he takes and then takes, then white's probably still having some edge here, but he does not go for that. Instead, he plays queen to c6, simply offering the queen trade, and I saw nothing better than to go into a very drawish ending after takes and rook d8. And I actually offered him a draw in this position, but he wanted to play on a few moves after takes, f6. It's true that his king is quicker to get in, but this is an obstacle bishop position, and it's pretty much dead drawn. We did play a few more moves, and then he plays king to d5. So maybe it seems a little bit uncomfortable that his king is perhaps accessing the queen side. And I had the choice here to play king d3, but I decided to go for the move pawn to g4, basically trying to bait him into playing king c4, and then I was going to play bishop to e7, and if king b3, bishop f8. It should still be a draw, but yeah, white has decent counterplay here. There's also the trap. If king takes a3, then white's winning after b5 check, and I would win the bishop on c6. So long story short, he didn't play king c4. Instead, he moved back his king. He played a few more moves. The pawns kind of got interlocked on the king side, and he offered a draw after h4, and I quickly accepted it. There's not much life in the position. So the game ended peacefully, and I think overall it was a very, very clean game. And I did actually run the engine analysis with this game, and let's actually switch into the live broadcast where we have the engine analysis. And I'll go ahead and show that this was pretty much a perfect game. Apologies if it's a little bit cut off, but according to the quick Stockfish analysis, neither of us made any inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders. Apparently my opponent played at 99%, I played at 98%. So it's just one of these games where it was really clean. And I think the biggest improvement I could have made was to watch more of the chess move course and be better prepared in the opening, especially with the secondary line. Like if I played knight c3 and watched, I think it's like an hour worth of analysis on this line, then yeah, maybe my opponent could have been under more pressure. But overall, really no complaints with this game. Sometimes chess is a draw if both players play really precisely. So it's nice to not have a super long game and be able to rest before tomorrow. So I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks everyone for watching. Do stay tuned for more games. If you want to watch the games live, you can tune in to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/IamRosen. Jonathan Trantz is taking over daily for guest commentary. And yeah, thanks everyone for your support, and I'll see you guys soon.